So our next speaker is Krista Murphy. Some of you have heard her talk. She is been here before and has told us about her story of recovery. So thank you, Krista, for coming back.
Hi, everybody. I'm nervous and sweaty. 6 months pregnant, so I'm a little shaky and weird. But I always introduce myself the same way, and I apologize for the people in the room that have heard this before, but it's just a brief glimpse into my story. I once heard a woman on a podcast describing her life with an eating disorder as like being a passenger on the Titanic. She described the helplessness and frustration of her relentless effort to find out why the ship was sinking. It was only in her recovery that she found out it didn't matter. She just needed to get off the ship. I couldn't describe my recovery efforts better. I had no history of trauma. I was smart, funny, charismatic, and beautiful. But even at the early age of 2, my mother described me as incredibly sensitive and spiritual. Throughout my entire life, I can't think of a time I couldn't sense what people were feeling, even in their best efforts to hide it. I was incredibly in tune with emotions, both mine and others, and because of this, I experienced them in extremities. I also can't remember when I wasn't obsessed with food. Every memory, occasion, person in my young life was linked to food for a reason I'll never know for certain, but for what I believe to be a perfect storm of genetics, personality, and destiny, I used food in a way that was different from normal eaters. I have early memories of hiding food in my room, eating until I made myself sick, and starving myself because I didn't like the way I looked or felt. I remember thinking I was fat and being terrified to be weighed in school in 2nd grade. These aren't things I learned, they're things I felt. When September 11th happened, only months after the untimely and tragic death of my uncle, I found myself experiencing my first of many anxiety attacks. Anxiety for me being the absence of God, and God not referring to any religion, just my sense of what I held on to, where I was from, and the layout, if you will. The reason things made sense, and the belief that love and good are the powers that drive. Controlling food became my existence from that time onward. Dieting led to severe restriction. When the hunger overcame me, I began binging, and my weight fluctuated noticeably. I learned how to make myself purge to try and regulate my now out-of-control binging. From the time I woke up until the time I went to sleep, and often in my dreams, I was tortured by thoughts of food in my body. At 18, I sought help. Therapists tried different techniques to try and decrease the damaging thoughts and behaviors with no avail. I entered an eating disorder treatment center for the first time at 23, the room you're in now, and finally found some relief. Within those walls, I was safe. I could talk openly with other patients who got it. I couldn't engage in behaviors there because I was watched. Sadly, I relapsed every time within days after being released. I was a patient here 5 times in my adult life, and I was also at 3 other residential treatment centers all over the country. This cycle tore at my heart and spirit and damaged my family and interpersonal relationships. So I did the only thing I could at the time. I learned how to shut my feelings off. I'm not even sure if it was a conscious choice, but I didn't know why I couldn't stop, and no one else could understand me either. To them, I was selfish. I wasn't trying hard enough. To me, I wanted more than anything to stop, but I couldn't. In 2013, I left Boston with a one-way plane ticket to Florida, which is where my spiritual journey began. On my own, I learned about addiction. The 12 steps were introduced to me there, although I was not ready to accept they were my solution. My obsessed mind still thought food was the problem, so food was where I focused. I fell in love with someone there who understood me, and together we tried so hard to fix ourselves. We moved to San Diego to start a life together, and very fortunately, it didn't work out between us. However, things did work out for me, because in San Diego I found magic, real magic. I learned about time and the mind and love. I learned about fear and truth and self-will and energy. I learned about being able to bring yourself to different frequencies by focusing on different things and changing your perspective. Still, I was in over my head in the binging and purging and was very sick. At the advice of the treatment center that had pulled me from my full-time job, I moved home for more treatment and to be near family. I came back here. In November of 2016, I met Patrick, and for the first time in my life, I was ready to take an honest look at myself. For almost 2 decades, I had allowed myself to be a victim of this illness, to fall prey to my own mind, and had to do what it told me to do. But meeting Patrick changed things for me. I became open-minded. I was ready to do anything to get better because I knew if I didn't, I'd be running alone for the rest of my life from treatment center to treatment center, searching for something that had been inside me all along. When I found Overeaters Anonymous, I began hearing the messages I know in my heart to be true. I found a sponsor named Denise who shared her experience with me and gave me hope. If she was once in my place and recovered, then I could too. She loved me from the beginning and taught me through the 12-step method. She reconnected me to the God of my understanding and gave me back my grip to hold on to so I could let go of the food. Do I consider myself recovered? Nope. And I will stand here today and say I hate that word. It makes it sound more like I did it, not I'm doing it. But today I know how to manage my disease, one day at a time. I wrote something for today, and I spent a bunch of days on it, but I'm just going to kind of wing it. I want to first start off, though, by talking about my definition of recovery. I do have some notes, though. My definition of recovery today is managing my symptoms one day at a time. And what am I managing? This is my first time being in front of a group where there are probably people in this room that have never suffered from or in recovery from an eating disorder. So I thought of a couple different metaphors I could use today. Landed on one of them. You guys can laugh if you want to. But I want you to close your eyes and imagine you're on a highway driving, and it's one of those highways where the exits are 10 miles apart, and you have to pee really bad. All right? Like bad. Like it's hurting bad. All right? And the people in the car around you, their conversation, you can't hear it anymore. You're irritable. You're uncomfortable. You can't focus on anything else. So your driving becomes reckless. You start speeding up. You need relief. The people in the car, they start telling you how it's affecting them. Doesn't matter. You need that relief. That's how I felt for 15 years of my life. Couldn't concentrate on anyone else going around me. I needed relief. That's how it was. But treatment. I really want to talk about treatment today because I'm an advocate for treatment. Treatment is the foundation of getting well. At least for me it was. Treatment gave me a food plan and proper nutrition that I still fall back on today when I'm feeling shaky and not intuitively eating. It helped me and gave me a safe place to try new medications for other disorders that I was suffering from. And it allowed me to talk openly about feelings that I kept down. Because I was afraid. I was afraid of feeling gross, talking about the behavior that I had with food. Because it wasn't normal. But I get asked this question all the time, and I wanted to bring it up here is, but why didn't treatment work for me, right? I kept going back, but it wasn't working. But it wasn't the treatment that wasn't working, you guys. Treatment is treatment. It's designed to standardize itself so that it can help all of you. But all of you are individuals. So your stories are going to be different. And what helps you find your solution is going to be different too. Albert Einstein has a quote. He said, "You can't solve a problem from the same consciousness that created it. You must learn to see the world anew." And that cracked me open. It wasn't treatment that was failing me. It wasn't that I wasn't working hard enough. It was that my mindset needed to change. I needed to become more willing. So I found a 12-step program because I liked the idea of it. I found someone who had what I wanted. I asked her how to do it, and I did what she told me to do. How is today different than sitting in the seat that I was in when I was here in 2016? Today I live in decision and in action, not intention. For 15 years of my life, I intended to get well. My intention was there. I thought recovery was going to be the end of that voice in my head. I thought I was going to be able to eat like a normal person. I thought it was glitter and rainbows and unicorns, and I was going to feel normal, right? What's normal? But that's not it. Recovery is learning how to deal with all the outside forces, how to deal with the inside forces, and manage your life. Those voices aren't as loud as they were before. I can turn them down now, and I can act differently. I can be terrified to eat my breakfast for the fear of gaining weight and eat it anyway. And that's what I do today. I don't let my mind run the show anymore, because there's brain and then there's mind, right? And mind can overcome brain. You can be a spectator of your thoughts. You can take action. That made all the difference for me. And also getting out of self. My sponsor had an idea that she shared with me one time, and it was sort of that watch pot never boils method. And it's this: if your focus on recovery is healing yourself and that's what you're obsessed with and that's the only thing you think about, it's when you back up and get out of yourself and start participating in the world again that makes the difference. Helping others is what keeps me strong today. It's why I'm here. It's why I dragged my fiance here this morning too. Because we need each other. So speak up, find a solution that works for you. Ask someone in recovery how they did it. I'm a sponsor now. I sponsor girls who sponsor other girls. I'm a grand sponsor now. Find someone who says that they have recovery and you can tell they glow. They glow. Ask them how they did it and just start following in action. Thank you.